Hello, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast, where it's two guys take on life, liberty, and the pursuit of gravy, and you, the listener, are getting a degree in common sense. We are broadcasting from the HB5 studios right here in beautiful downtown historic Concord, North Carolina. I'll be your host, Biggin, and how about you? We've got a great show lined up for you, as always. How you be doing? Followed by some wacky news, a segment that we call Mojo Reads, and we have special guest Chris Magee with Bopflixfilm.com. So it's, like I said, a great show, as always. But before I begin, let me introduce you to the second half of this flaky biscuit. That's right, I'm talking about the pride of Anderson, South Carolina, 2016's Honorable Mention Beefcake of the Year. He is the inventor of the Redneck Egg Roll. Give it up on old mic number one. It's Mojo!
Wow, we're getting consistent 2 episodes in a row.
How about you, buddy?
Welcome back. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Please go to our Facebook page at Southern Fried Philosophy, our website at southernfriedphilosophy.com. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at SFP Radio. And also, please go to our YouTube at youtube.com/SFP Radio.
There you go. I'm going to ask you like I ask you every week. Mojo, how you be doing?
Buddy, my biscuits have been burning.
Again?
Yeah.
Again?
Yeah.
What is it this time, my friend?
School delays.
Ooh.
Jeez.
I forgot about that.
Okay, here we go. We've had I think 3 or 4 school delays in about a 7-day period, and it hasn't snowed an inch here. They called all, or they gave a 2-hour delay for the schools because it was too cold to stand at the bus stop. I mean, granted, it was like 18 degrees, but
sure,
come on.
Sure.
I mean, I guess they don't trust the parents to be responsible enough to keep their kids in the house,
right?
Until maybe the bus comes a little closer,
right? Yeah. Hey,
and then they called off school for a 3-hour delay the other day because there was a couple icy patches somewhere in the county. So it drives me nuts because you have to delay your whole day.
Sure, it ruins the whole day.
Yeah, so it's just it's been driving me nuts the last couple of weeks. But hey, let's put a 3-hour delay. Let's have the kids in. We'll have them in for 2 hours and then send them home. I mean, come on.
That makes no sense.
It's all about school funding. It's all about school funding.
Gotta get those.
Yeah, they don't lose their snow days or whatever. So,
well, I think probably the thing is they don't want to let the Pop-Tarts spoil in the mornings. They give the kids the Pop-Tarts.
To be honest with you, I don't think any institutional prison food they serve will ever spoil. So that's just rank.
Dude, I did substitute teaching for maybe like a week. And I was shocked at just they give them breakfast, lunch, and pack them a meal and send it home.
Yeah, I don't know when that started. And of course, as my libertarian self, I'm not for that just because I don't believe in that. But it is nuts. I mean, 'cause especially certain school districts do it even more. Like I said, ours doesn't. It's just they have some people that are on the early lunch program.
Sure,
everybody gets lunch. People have paid, and people get some free and subsidized. But there's some districts out there, like you said, they'll actually send them food home. Yeah. Also, which
I will say that I did enjoy in the mornings when they did serve the breakfast. I mean, they were like giving these kids like Eggos and all that kind of stuff. But I did steal occasional chocolate milk because I did like the
nothing like a school chocolate milk in the old wax paper carton.
You're right. So. No, they had it in a bag.
In a bag. In
a little plastic bag. You had to shove
like a Capri Sun.
No, it was worse than that. It was like a breast implant, if you will.
Oh wow.
And you had to shove the straw through the bag. But man, I tell you, there were a couple times where I got close to going to the other side.
There's no phallic imagery there or anything like that, or sexual innuendos. Yeah.
Wow. Careful. Yeah, so it was just it was in a bag. You didn't have the bag? Even in high school I had the bag.
I never heard of a bag.
Really?
I am sorry.
Huh.
What podunk county of the world are you from?
It's from Florida. Of course, Florida.
Florida. Meanwhile, in Florida,
people are getting served milk in a bag. Well, let us know if you have had milk in a bag.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah, no doubt.
That is so many bad thoughts coming into my mind like that. Like chocolate milk. I mean, geez, in a bag.
Bag.
I know sometimes they do that in Asian countries, with juices and stuff. But here in America, we can't even afford to put it in a carton. I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But you have to admit though, when you had the plastic carton though, and you open it up, when you took a drink and you sniffed, it had that foul smell to it, didn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't like that. So I kind of prefer the bag. I don't like the stabbing part of the bag, but I like.
Yeah, because that could go wrong in so many ways.
Because so many, and it did go.
You're waiting to talk to the cute little girl with the water fountain, and all of a sudden you're wearing.
Yo, girl, you want some milk? Yeah. Oh crap! Yeah, no,
run your whole outfit. You know?
Ruined it. Yeah. Ruined it good.
So how you be doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. I tell you what, our like little blue Jesus car keeps coming back to life. If you guys don't know, we've got I don't know if I talked about it on the show, but we've got a 2001 Honda Civic. And that sucker will not die. We have tried to kill it numerous times. But hey buddy, I thought she was dead. No. Our friends at Charlie's Auto Mechanic in Concord, boy, they brought that sucker back to life. I'm trying to get a new car and I can't. My wife ruined the last one. And she got a new car. Maybe I should just throw this thing off a ditch. Possibly.
I know a guy. I know a guy who knows a guy who can arrange. Yeah.
Golly. I tell you, I mean, I'm thankful for no car payment, but that sucker, I don't know how many more legs she's got. But it doesn't burn my biscuit. I'm thankful for that. But one thing I do want to talk about, being good Southern boys that we are, how about that Alabama UGA game? How about it?
Yeah, and of course, Alabama is like the New England Patriots of the college
you're
world.
right.
So I didn't watch the game because I could have cared less about the two teams. But,
seriously,
I've got to see all my Alabama friends on the Facebooks, celebrating another championship. Then, of course, my Georgia Dog fan friends on the Facebooks were, the worst refs, they're playing for Alabama, so you got to see all that typical, stuff that you see. So.
Sure. That you don't do.
But I know but I did check the score right before I went to bed, like at midnight or something like that. It was like it was tied up going into overtime. So.
Yeah. Wow. I don't know if you watched on ESPN, but
I didn't.
Congratulations.
I tried to, but then ESPN got political before I could get to the Alabama scores. So I was like, screw this. I turned it over to the Food Network.
There you go. Well, congratulations to old Alabama. I was pulling for UGA. I was pulling for UGA. Boy, that's hard to say. But anyway.
Ugga.
Yeah. So I was trying. Well, we're going to go into some wacky news. I don't know if you have seen this or not, but it is something that I probably could use. With an ingestible pill, you can now track fart development in real time on your phone.
Boy, my insurance company would get their money's worth on that.
Scientists often hope to break ground with new research, but a group of Australian researchers would likely be happy with breaking wind. A team developed an ingestible electronic capsule to monitor gas levels on the human gut. When paired with a pocket-sized receiver and a mobile phone app, the pill reports tailwind conditions in real time as it passes through the stomach and the colon. How would you like that?
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
No?
Because, I know how many times I fart. I don't need an app on my phone to tell me how many times I fart. So.
You're right about that. The only thing I could tell you right now, like if I go to the Mexican restaurant, hey buddy.
Yeah.
I don't need a pill for that.
Yeah. I'm sure it's probably great for someone who has some condition, but I think I'm okay for now.
You think so?
Yeah.
What do you? I found out this week. Well, I didn't find out this week, but my wife started getting the lactose-free milk.
Oh.
And when I drink that, it's much less irritable on my stomach.
Yeah.
Boy, I get gas drinking milk. I didn't realize how bad that was.
Yeah, it affects.
Good God, that's real.
I'm sure our listeners out there can relate.
Yeah. But anyway, the lactose-free milk isn't bad. It's like one of the fair something.
Oh, fair. Yeah, I got you.
Hey, buddy.
I can't remember the name of it.
That ain't bad. Some bad milk right there. I'll tell you that right now.
But it's got to be better than the original, lactose-free, like Lactaid, the first version.
Oh, yeah, no.
That stuff was like drinking chalk or something
No, this stuff is like thick, like almost like whole milk.
Hey.
Pretty legit.
It's just made out of plastic, but that's all right.
That's all right. There's been worse in my stomach than that right now.
I don't know if you saw this or not, but I found this one kind of hilarious. A woman returns dead Christmas tree to Costco in January for full refund. While the rest of us were debating where to abandon our trees, one woman decided to take hers back for a refund. So come January, this woman reportedly wanted her money back for her once lively Christmas tree because it's now dead. Customers at the Costco in the suburbs of L.A. were blown away. A man couldn't help himself and posted on Facebook. I can't make this stuff up. He wrote, a woman in line at Costco totally nonchalantly to return her Christmas tree because it was dead on January 4th. And Costco actually issued a refund.
No, they didn't.
Zero shame for this lady.
Hey,
Zero shame.
buddy. I don't know. I kind of got to applaud her for that one.
Yeah, but come on. That's the height of just that's idiocracy. I mean, I know. I mean, how cheap are you?
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
gotcha.
Like,
I mean, how much do you think that's going to run you?
if I was Costco, instead of getting a refund, I'd take a picture, give her a contract, and give her a free, artificial tree to say, get the heck out. So I mean,
there you go.
It's probably $40, but still,
Yeah.
everybody did that now. They know they can do that.
Oh yeah. Hey, buddy.
It would totally corrupt the Christmas
Way to
tree
go,
industry.
Costco.
Yeah, ruined it for everybody else.
I was tipped off by our friend Sketch, who was here last year, about this YouTube video from a Red House Furniture here in High Point, North Carolina. So, they've got a YouTube video that's got 6.2 million views, by the way. Wow. How about you? So I'm going to play that for you just because it's some funny stuff. So here's the video.
Just get along.
At the Red House Furniture,
We can.
At the Red House.
I'm Richard, a.k.a. Big Head. I work at the Red House and I'm black. I like pumping iron and pumping furniture into people's homes.
Because I'm black.
I'm Johnny, a.k.a. 10 Gauge. I work at the Red House and I'm white. I like deer hunting, bass fishing, and extending credit to all people.
At the Red House.
I'm black and I love the Red House. I'm white and I love the Red House.
I'm a black woman and I love the Red House.
I am white and the Red House is for me.
And I just learned to read.
House.
Oh, this is classic, by the way.
Love the music.
Yep.
Look at the sofa. It's perfect for a black person or a white person.
This mattress is perfect for a white person or a black person.
At the Red House, where black people and white people buy furniture.
And Hispanic people too.
And all people.
Oh, I tell you what. The next time I got to buy furniture, I legitimately may go to Red House Furniture.
Yeah, that was actually a video I think made a couple years ago by the former YouTube sensations, or actually current YouTube sensations and social media stars, Rhett and Link. Actually, they're from the North Carolina area. They also have a couple great videos like This Is Barbecue. I don't know if you heard of that one.
No.
That's one of my favorites. Actually, it's actually pretty cool. It's educational too.
Okay,
So, yeah.
gotcha. I bet you would enjoy that one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! All right, so so that's some of our wacky news. We do have a couple other videos that are stories that we want to bring to you. So we're going to This Is Your America.
These are the days of America, walking together through the promised land.
Do you know the 10 most dangerous jobs in America in 2016?
Podcaster's probably not one of them.
That is not on the list. The top 10 most dangerous in 2016. We got all the numbers in. We've compiled all the numbers, but
the ladies and gentlemen at the home office.
they have now presented us the 10, and it's a little surprising. Number 10, ground maintenance workers. Like
Ground maintenance workers?
ground maintenance workers.
Well, I guess that's a little different. I was thinking of greenskeepers. I can see that being dangerous. Those stinking gophers.
Yeah, there's 17.4 people have died on that. Number 9, first line supervisors of construction, trades, and extraction workers. I have no idea what all that means. other than you're dealing with construction.
You said extraction?
Yeah, construction, trades, and extraction workers. Maybe people like going after people, possibly.
Okay.
I don't know. Number 8, farmers, ranchers, and other agricultural managers. 23.1 of farmers, ranchers, or other agricultural managers have passed away this year. Number 7, truck and sales drivers. 24.7 people have passed away on that one. Number 6, iron and steel workers. I could see, like, this is starting to get progressively, like, more and more dangerous, I can tell. 25.1. Here's what kind of throws me. Number 5, trash and recycling collectors. 34 people have died this year for picking up trash. That one threw me.
Cars, shooting. I mean, what?
I don't know. But I
Get
thought
squashed by the compressor.
I thought the hand kind of little robot.
We have it here,
Yeah.
the automatic, but there's still a lot of local areas that just have the old, have the
have to
manual.
go pick it up.
Yeah.
34 people. Roofers, I thought would probably be a little bit higher. 48.6 people have died. That's been number 4. Number 3, aircraft pilots and flight engineers. 55 people have died.
Really?
And no clue. Here's where like 2 and 1 kind of makes sense. Fishers and related fishing workers. So I guess like the deadliest catch and all that. Any idea on number 1? Any thoughts on what it could be?
Strippers.
Close. Logging workers.
They both deal with wood.
135 people have died in logging related
I could see that, man.
Oh, yeah.
Just the conditions, the weather, and also the equipment too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you just think about like A&E. They have like, Axemen,
Yeah.
which kind of makes sense, and then Fisher, and then Wicked Tuna, or the Deadliest Catch. Like, those are some legit hard things. Yeah.
Wow.
Podcasters are not anywhere on the list.
you think a soldier would be up there?
Yeah.
Or
Oh yeah.
or
I didn't
about
think
how about
that.
or about officers? Like policemen.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I think there's been over 100 casualties in officers this past year. So, but
Why
anyway,
didn't they make the list?
maybe they list them in civil servants or something like that. I guess maybe I don't know. That doesn't make sense because those
Yeah.
are both careers. I mean, there are career
Yeah.
soldiers.
No. Well, this list is crap.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't have on there like media journalist or Hollywood actress, actor.
Yeah, because that's clearly
Yeah.
a bad thing.
Yeah. All right. So I was tweeting or not tweeting. I was messaging back and forth today, and the Seattle soda tax or sin tax experiment, quote unquote. Have you read much about this?
Basically, from what I understand, is if you buy soda or anything that's fattening or bad for you, you get taxed extra on it.
Yeah, June last year, Seattle City Council passed a $1.75 per ounce.
Good night.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was that
tax
much.
hit. So, for example, if somebody wants to buy a Gatorade variety pack at Costco or BJ's or Sam's, for the normally would cost with $15.99, the price is now $26.33.
Holy cow!
So
Gatorade's good for you.
Seattle and Portland, as much as I love the areas, are just nuts. Come on. I mean, of course, what can you expect? They're the ones that had the highest minimum wages in the area, and of course they had the most closures of restaurants. Not only did this tax ruin the sodas, but also Subways in the area have announced that they will not be doing the $5 footlong special.
No, what?
Yeah.
Now I'm involved. Now,
Yeah, they can't afford to do it just because of the minimum wage and the tax and stuff like that.
Sure.
They can't afford to do it. So this special nationwide franchise thing with Subway, so they've had to opt out. But yeah, so this is your government at work, obviously thinking they can change the diabetes problem or obesity problem with sugar through taxing through it.
Wow.
So
I'm sure that's
do they
working
not?
good for you.
Do they not? The city of Seattle, not think ahead and say, you know what, maybe people can go outside the city limits,
right?
and buy at Costco.
But then you got to think like, okay, so your biggins, your Ada Moon Pie ladies, or your Fat Five fat guys, they're going to be poor because they can't afford the fresh fruit and fresh vegetables.
Yep.
That
The
they
food
need,
deserts.
Yeah, that they need to get healthy again.
Right.
So you're just screwing them.
It's a
Congratulations,
travesty.
Seattle.
But not only this, I guarantee. I know this will sound funny,
Mm-hmm.
but I guarantee this will open up a black market for sodas.
You think
There'll
so?
be people buying it out, bringing it in, and selling it for half.
Like cigarettes, the old tax stamps.
I mean, it still happens in New York. I mean,
Yeah.
people, up in New York, people will go to the tribal lands, the casino areas, and they'll buy cigarettes, take them back to the city, and sell them for half price. I
Hey,
mean,
buddy.
So, yep, that's where we're at now.
A appeal was denied ICE to move forward with the deportation of a paraplegic boy's caregiver. In Cincinnati, federal immigration officials said that they will proceed with a deportation of an Ohio man who is the sole provider and trained medical caregiver of a 6-year-old paraplegic boy. Yo Carlos Mendez, of 27 of Springdale, has lived with the boy's mother, Sandra Mendoza, since 2014 and has become the only father that Ricky has known. His birth father is no longer in Ricky's life. That's a shocker. When ICE was told of their decision, Mendoza says, "I can't believe this. Why is this happening?" Basically, he violated his visa waiver and exceeded it after it being expired for 2 years, and then so the immigration said, "We are going to send you back." And he's the only person that has, I guess, health insurance that is caring for this little paraplegic boy. So I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
That article. Any thoughts?
On
that one.
I think first we have to back off and punt because the story's being spun. Obviously, that this is a Trump administration problem, or Trump
Right.
administration's has basically these Stasi going out and collecting people and throwing them in gulags
Sure.
and sending
Yep.
them back.
Yep.
That's not actually the case.
Not happening.
In fact, if you look at the stats, just in case anybody's out there is listening, Obama actually donated, or not donated, I'm sorry, over the course of 8 years, he actually deported between 3 million people. So
Didn't hear about that, though.
yeah,
did
we didn't hear much about that. Actually, under Trump right now, going against his pledge to his platform and to the Trumpkins, that he's actually only escorted out of this country about 34,000 people.
Wow.
So he's falling far below the pace
Right.
of what Obama did.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So I just kind of want to throw a few stats out there because I know people. You know how people, they don't do any reading.
Sure.
And if you're on the conservative side, then if you're a Trumpkin who wants to defend Trump, obviously you can spout that. I just like to look at things objectively. Personally, I think it's horrible. But number one, we do have to have some semblance of law here. I mean, if I was to break that law or break a law, I'd be kicked out.
Sure.
I mean, no matter what sob story I would spin, I'd still be gone. I mean, there's really nothing I can do. This is just people putting a media spin on it.
Exactly.
There's a real face. There's a real face attached to
Yeah.
it, and my heart goes out to the little kid because this is his father by intents purposes.
And legally, he's a common law spouse.
Yeah, so I feel for that. Unfortunately, he probably could have headed this off. I'm sure he's had notices. I'm sure that he's had opportunity to marry the mother for, if the mother is a legal resident. There's been opportunities there to become a legal resident.
Yeah.
It's just like, give you an example, just small world. If you don't pay your property tax on your car or your house, they will come take it.
They will.
They don't care if there's an elderly person that's hooked up to a monitor in there. They're going to come take that. They're not going. It don't matter if you put it on the news or not. I mean, granted, hopefully some nice soul would come pay that tax for that person.
Right.
But that's not going to stop the government from taking it. So I feel for this family. Hopefully there's a resolution that can be found. But this isn't the story that USA Today, and some other sites have come to make it be. This is heartbreaking, but you got to look at it. We're a nation of almost 340 million people.
Yeah.
We can't allow a few thousand, million, whatever the numbers are, just break the laws willy nilly just because it's going to tug on our heartstrings. If that's the case, then I actually need my tax money too to pay my bills. What if I don't? What if I don't pay my income taxes?
Yeah.
So that's just my personal.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that piece. I think that the word illegal alien kind of has the word illegal in it. I do think there needs to be a complete overhaul to make it faster, cheaper, the ability to come over to the country a whole lot better. But for right now, it is what it is, and we've got to figure out a way that this works for everybody. So
yeah, there's obviously more ways than one to path to citizenship or a worker visa state program or a work to citizenship. There's a multitude of paths. We just need to get our people that we elect to represent us need to get their heads out of their rear ends and actually get some work done. Back in September or August, I can't remember. I got to go back and look, but I kind of predicted what was going to happen with DACA. Everybody was, the social media atomic bomb of the day was DACA, and how when DACA got, DACA was going to be rescinded. All these poor people were going to be rounded up by, military and sent back. And this is, middle of January 2018, and that hasn't happened. There's been no mass refugees seeking asylum in churches or places of worship. None of that's happened.
Right.
In fact, today, it kind of looks like Trump may be hedging, conceding a little bit on DACA and actually giving some type of pathway to something here.
Yeah.
Which will pretty much alienate his base.
And this actually just live in from the White House.
Pretty much. But by the way, I don't, for the people that maybe are listening and maybe getting upset, I try to view this as objectively. I didn't vote for Trump. I do support him as a president. I do like some of his policies and some I don't. But here's the problem, I think, where liberals will absolutely lose their ever-living mind, is that they cannot divorce themselves from the man and the position of the office.
Yeah.
And the conservatives were just as guilty with that with Obama and his thing. You can dislike the man, but you can also divorce yourself from that in the position, but you can also look at each individual policy that these guys and future women will actually lay down. You can actually say, I like, don't like.
Yeah.
That doesn't dismiss.
I think for me, I would love hanging out with Barack. I'd go grab a beer with him any day.
I don't know, because I don't know if my white privilege would be covered.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
But I would hang out with him. I don't like his policies.
Sure.
But I think he's a great guy.
Sure.
We'd go hang out.
Yeah.
But Trump, I probably wouldn't hang out, but I kind of like his policies.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I don't think your ego. I don't think there's enough room in the ego the
not.
room with his ego inside of it. So.
If I could just get him one time to tweet Southern Fried Philosophy,
that would be magical.
We would just be quitting our job.
We'll probably get him to say it pretty quick.
It would take him a month to figure out how to say it right. Oh, all right. So we're going to go into a segment called Mojo Reads, where Mojo has read a book, and I absolutely have not read a book. So he's going to talk to us about that.
Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow, a reading rainbow.
Yeah, what was the name of the guy who actually hosted the show? Vern something?
I have no idea.
I just remember him from Star Trek.
Yes, he was the Star Trek guy.
Yeah.
What happened to his eyes? That's what I want to know.
He read too much.
Love
Anyway,
it.
so a buddy of mine, listener to the show, Mark Mills.
Mark?
Mark, if you listen, sorry you had to move.
Oh,
he moved back.
buddy.
He moved back to South Carolina. So, anyway, Mark told me. Mark knows where I'm from. I'm from Anderson, South Carolina, Anderson County, South Carolina, and I love history. And I love Southern history, not just because of its racist roots or whatever. I just love it because my family, as soon as they hopped off the potato boat from Ireland, this is where they settled. So I'm fascinated by history of the culture and food and booze and everything like that. So anyway, he turned me onto a book called The Emancipation of Robert Sadler.
Okay.
So with the title, what do you think that probably means?
Probably a guy named Robert Sadler that got emancipated.
Yeah.
If I had to wildly guess. That's what it would probably be.
You hit it on the nose.
Oh my gosh. You can judge a book by its cover.
Exactly. This one literally. But the Emancipation and the Emancipation Proclamation took place, Civil War, blah blah blah. So we all know about that from history. But the thing about this, he was emancipated from slavery in the early 1920s.
Wow.
So talking about a very bone-chilling book, this book was actually raw, very gritty, because this was basically a lot of his words, a lady basically just rode around with him getting a story, and this wasn't a very well learned man. He was a very
learned
man. He picked up reading late. His vocabulary wasn't probably proper and whatever, but he had a pretty great life after. But basically, what happened when he was 5 years old. And I'll spoil the book for people. It's a great book. So
Spoiler alerts.
But he was 5 years old. He came from a pretty large family, and his mother passed away, and they were like sharecroppers, and mother passed away. And basically his dad was an alcoholic, sold him into slavery.
Wow.
Yeah, sold him to another farm, another plantation. I actually know where the plantation is. I grew up probably about 5 minutes from it.
Really?
Actually sold him to that plantation, and not only was he sold once, he was actually sold again because he ran away. Or actually, the plantation owner actually brought him back to his dad because he wouldn't mind. But he actually sold him to a second plantation. So this kid worked from age 5 until about 16 years old on a plantation, hard slave work. And he wasn't the only one. These,
Sure.
They probably had close to 100, maybe 200, according to his recollection. But nothing had changed in that period of time. And it's gut wrenching. It's embarrassing because you like to think when the war is over, the war is over.
Yeah.
There's no carryover. There's no spillover. Just like with World War II, they announced defeat.
Everybody stops.
Victory. Everybody stopped. Not true. Actually, in history in Germany, there was actually a rogue group of soldiers called the Wolverines and would go around sniping American soldiers trying to reconstruct Europe. So these things carry over, and I just never realized that in the South. I'm almost 41 years old now. I realized about my hometown, actually slavery still existed there up until the 20s. And, of course, slavery still exists today.
Yeah.
But in my own stomping grounds, I mean, granted, I wasn't born in the 1920s, but it's still.
Right.
But Robert Sadler found his way out. He escaped, ran away. Fast forward a little bit, but he actually becomes a minister and had traveled all over the states.
Wow.
Got married, never had kids, but he got married. Him and his wife had a ministry and just traveled all over the country. So just an inspiring book. Like this raw, gritty. So if you're looking for that perfect English novel, that's not it. But it's an easy read. I read it in one night. I mean, I just couldn't put it down because it was gut wrenching and heart wrenching. So anyway, that was my Mojo's read of the month.
Out of 5 biscuits, what would you give it?
Definitely 4.5. Only reason to get that half just because it was hard to read at parts, just because of the language. You have to slow down, and I'd have to remember how my aunts and uncles and granny would talk. So then I'd be caught up.
Gotcha. Well, very cool. Well, we are going to go to break, and when we come back, we have Chris Magee with Bopflix Film. I know you're going to want to stick around for that. Also, just a couple of things for housekeeping. If you would like to actually sit in on an episode of the Southern Fried Philosophy podcast, just email us at sfpradio@gmail.com, and you can sit in the SFP smoking seats brought to you by Bad Mother Smokers Barbecue. Or if you want a T-shirt, we will send those out. And we're also creating hats that have our logo on them, little trucker-style hats. So if you want one of those, we'll get a picture up on our website, and you can also email us those as well. Cost for the hats will be $15 or $20. Use promo code BIGGIN, and you get $5 off. And then shirts are still $20. So anyway, give us a email if you are interested in any of that. Otherwise, we will be right back. You're listening to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. Summer is made for grilling and chilling, and you too can be the baddest mother smoker on the block using our favorite award-winning smoking sauce. Bad Mother Smokers is perfect match for that favorite meat, veggies, or even that secret ingredient in a pot of chili. Check out badmothersmokers.com to place your order, and if you want to be a barbecue pit master like Mojo, enter the promo code MOJO for 10% off your order. Visit badmothersmokers.com or the sponsor section of our website at southernfriedphilosophy.com. we are back. You're listening to the Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. And with us this week, we have got Chris Magee from Bopflix Films. That's easy to say. Here we go. So here's the interview.
All right, welcome to the show, Chris. I appreciate you coming on. I know we communicated last year in 2017 about getting you on the show. For our listeners, I've made it no secret that I'm a huge fan of 50s and 60s music, from doo-wop to soul to rockabilly, especially now, is what I kind of like. And I like the revival. So I came across on Facebook and Instagram this gentleman out of the UK doing these awesome videos of just these younger guys and gals doing rockabilly revival, and I was inspired to contact him. So here we have him on. So Chris Magee, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So let's get down to the nitty gritty here. I find this interesting because my father was my father grew up in the 50s and 60s. That's his childhood. So I got to hear of all these grand stories of the sock hops and the 56 and 57 Chevy Bel Airs and the just the having fun and good music. And he always told me anything after 1970, the music was crap. So I didn't realize that rockabilly was worldwide like this. I mean, you've exposed me to some bands that are just crazy. So how did you fall in love with this music and decide to start filming these awesome videos?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a very strange thing. Obviously, it did start in America in the mid early 50s, rockabilly music, and then sort of turning into rock and roll. And I think back in the 50s, rockabilly didn't really come to Europe or England. I mean, it came over here more in the form of rock and roll, really. And we kind of probably got a little bit of the rockabilly, but it was kind of it had already moved into rock and roll by the time it got here. So I think the first time round, we kind of missed the rockabilly thing, and it kind of happened so quickly, and we kind of sort of jumped on the rock and roll bandwagon, and then it kind of moved off, obviously, into the 60s, and sort of beat and everything happened, and the Beatles and all that. But I think it was almost like we didn't quite get it. We didn't really get a chance to really do it properly. So it got into the 70s and the late 70s in particular, and there was a very big rock and roll 1950s rock and roll revival that happened in Europe and predominantly in England as well. There was a massive rock and roll Teddy Boy music scene that kind of that came up, and it was a mixture of original people that had maybe started in the 50s and some in the 60s that were kind of sort of still kind of going out and wanting to go out and listen to old music. Oh, wow. And then a new younger generation that was suddenly kind of picking up these old records and finding these old records and suddenly discovering it. And this was the point that rockabilly started to properly come over to the UK, because by this time in America, rockabilly had sort of been forgotten, or it was in the vaults, and all of these curious British music lovers were coming over to America and sort of sourcing out all this sort of rare, obscure, small indie label rockabilly and bringing it back to the UK and sort of playing it out at clubs and all this kind of stuff. So it started really in the late 70s as a kind of as a very underground movement, a sort of subculture alongside punk and everything else that was going on in the late 70s. And there was lots of different subcultures at the time. There's sort of skinhead movements as well. Oh, wow. There's lots of different things. And it kind of moved on into the 80s. And then once you got into the 80s, it started to take on a bit of a life of its own. I think that's when you started getting bands like the Polecats and obviously the Stray Cats as well, who were from America. So you start getting the neo edge, and rockabilly starts to take on its own life in a sort of more modern sense. Rather than just everyone listening to the old stuff, people are actually kind of making new bands with a slightly new sound as well. And that really continued through the 80s and into the 90s, but again on a very underground level. And it's kind of continued like that ever since. It's just never really died. It's just carried on, and as each decade's gone on, it's remained a subculture. It's remained very underground. It's remained a very small scene, but it's a scene that kind of that's become international. That it's spread across Europe and kind of and really back to America as well. In the sort of 80s and 90s, it kind of went back to America, and then you started getting really fantastic American rockabilly bands, new American rockabilly bands, kind of then coming back over to Britain. So it's kind of bouncing backwards and forwards. And then what you've sort of had over the last sort of 30, 40 years is just like a constant new generation of rockabilly people coming into the scene and the lifestyle. Yeah. So basically, So it's basically just been bobbing along through the decades, and so it's been bobbing along through the decades, and it's sort of just picked up new people as each decade's gone along, and new bands have come into it, new bands have gone out of it, and people have just sort of drifted in and out of this kind of this scene and just kept it alive. It's not, we're not talking enormous numbers, but there's enough numbers to keep it kind of going as a sort of subculture, and it changes all the time. Every decade it kind of has its highs and its lows, and there's times where it feels like it's kind of maybe on the wane, and then all of a sudden a new generation will come in and pick it back up again and maybe reinvent it a little bit and take it forward. But yeah, so all over Europe there is this whole kind of scene that's going on. In each country has its own thing going on, and some countries almost have their own styles or elements or kind of ways of presenting it, if you like. But yeah, that's the story, really. It's sort of ongoing, and I personally got into it in the 90s as a teenager. I wasn't very satisfied or happy with the music I was listening to at the time. Growing up, I just wasn't really digging what was going on. Everybody around me was listening to whatever was in the charts at the time. It wasn't really doing it for me. And then I remember I was going through my dad's old records, actually.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and he was a kid in the 50s. He wasn't a teenager in the 50s. He was a kid in the 50s, but he still kind of was exposed to the music in Britain, the rock and roll music, and some of the American artists like Buddy Holly. So into the 60s, he kind of got more into the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and stuff like that. But he did like some of the slightly older music that you probably heard when he was a kid. So he had a few records in his collection, rock and roll records, Buddy Holly, things like that. So when I started, as a teenager, I was going through some of his records, and I found some of these old Buddy Holly records, and I put those on, and that was for me the starting point, Buddy Holly. So I listened to a lot of Buddy Holly, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic, but I didn't know that there was other people listening to this music. I didn't know that there was a scene at all. I was completely unaware, a little bit like you yourself with rockabilly in outside of America. I didn't know there was anything going on. I thought it was just an old music form, and it was sort of long gone. I'd missed the boat, if you like. But I carried on listening to it, and just try to find out more and more about it, and try to find other related artists and stuff like that. And then just by chance, one day I got chatting to somebody who was working. Someone was working at my college. It turned out that we got talking, and we started talking about music, and it turned out that they were into this music as well. And they started telling me about the fact that there was all these clubs going on, and there was all this scene that had been going on since the 70s and all this kind of stuff. And to me, I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? I've never heard of any of this, And this was just sort of before the internet as well. So, it was very hard to know about stuff unless you found it yourself, or you knew people that were onto it. It's not like now. I mean, now it's become a lot easier, which is why I think it's actually doing quite well now, because it's much easier to find, and there's a big resurgence that's happened through the internet. So people can, if they get an inkling for rockabilly or roots music, they can go onto Google and instantly find out that there's this big world out there. But back then in the 90s, there was nothing really. So unless you knew somebody that was going out to these clubs and knew where these clubs were, you sort of just didn't know it was happening. It was a bit of a mystery, So I was very fortunate, very lucky to bump into someone or meet someone that was also into this music. And I sort of said, I've loved this stuff, but I didn't know there was all this whole kind of lifestyle going on. So I think around 16, 17, I started going to my first clubs and in London, and that was it. It just opened up a whole world. I couldn't believe it. I suddenly discovered all these bands, all these people who'd been doing it for decades. Some people had only been doing it for as long as me. You know, they just sort of joined it. You know, and then I started going to festivals, and it grew from there. So over the years, I've carried on, you know, pursuing that. I've been into that scene for since the late 90s. So it's now well, just over probably just over 20 years now. It was about it would have been about 96, something like that. So, and as the years went on, I was in my personal life, I was also pursuing my interests in film and stuff like that. I was working in TV, but I wasn't on the production side. I was more just like I was more like on the sidelines in TV. I was kind of like in the admin side, but I was like kind of thinking, this is where I think I want to go. This is the direction I think I want to go. I want to go into production. So, but what I did is I started buying cameras and making my own videos and making my own films.
That's cool.
So I would go out and just start filming the things that I was interested in, which was bands. And I'll take them to clubs and start filming rock and roll bands, rockabilly bands. And this was in the sort of mid 2000s, I guess. And it kind of that's really where this whole thing started. So it just started with me playing around, sort of having a bit of a taste for the music on one side, and also an interest in filming and editing and all that. As the years rolled on, I started doing it more and more and more, and people started to take notice, and then bands started to say, hey, you know, is there any chance you can come film us? Can you do a little video for us? We need a little video to put online. And then this is the sort of time that YouTube started to appear in social media and MySpace and all this kind of stuff. Suddenly there was a platform where you could then actually present and put this stuff online. You know, before that, in the early 2019, there was nothing. You couldn't. Right. I mean, there was the internet, but there wasn't really platforms where you could showcase stuff. So all of a sudden, there was an opportunity for me to film stuff and put it out there and sort of help to kind of raise awareness and to kind of allow people to share and find this stuff, you know. So that's really that was sort of like 2008, 2009. So it's been about 10 years, and around that time it started to get popular enough that I was able to quit my day job and pursue it as a proper job. So so that's what I've been doing since. So the last 10 years I've been building it up. I've been working with lots of bands, doing lots of different projects like documentaries, promos, music videos, and then it's grown and grown and grown and grown. And then recently, in the last couple of years, year to 2 years, I've been really pushing this session series, which I think is what you've found. And which has given me a chance to work with a really high volume of bands because it's a sort of format and a formula which is quite simple, but it's quite effective, I think, because it's got kind of a sort of production value to it, but at the same time it's very quick to do, you know, because it's all done in one take, very little editing, so it enables me to go out there and just film lots and lots and lots and lots of bands and sort of have a high output, if you like. So
you mentioned MySpace earlier. Do you think that that's going to make a comeback, or is it pretty much dead?
Yeah,
I mean, they try. I think it's gone, isn't it?
Actually, it just sold again. Actually,
did it really? Yeah. How about it? Attaboys.
As you're a British citizen, would you, to our worldwide listeners, would you actually apologize for Coldplay and Ed Sheeran, please?
I apologise for Coldplay and Ed Sheeran. It's a real shame.
We're trying to get a Canadian to apologize for Justin Bieber, but we haven't had one on the show yet. So.
Yeah, that's the big one. Days. That's the big one. Yeah.
So for you, like music, that type of music is pretty consistent, you know, through the ages. So I guess from the 80s to the 90s hasn't really changed that much. So like you kind of see the same thing over and over and over again, maybe with a little bit of a different twist to it. Does that ever get old to you? Like, you know, I think of like a band that has to play the same song over again.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I mean, it does. There's been small reinventions, and there's been people that have tried to do different things with it, and sometimes people are successful with that, and sometimes, you know, maybe it doesn't work. But there has been some bands that have come along that have innovated, and they've kind of, and also record labels as well that have come along that have tried to take on the 50s sound and try to do some new stuff or freshen it up or just sort of make it sort of fit into today's music. So rather than it simply being a case of everyone's trying to copy and be like the 50s or 50s or 60s or whatever. They're actually trying to kind of bring something new to it or fresh to it, or make it kind of, which is kind of something I've been trying to do with some of my videos as well. Especially on the music video side, I've tried to get away from some of the cliches, because as much as it's great, it's lovely stuff. There's only so many times you can film a video in a diner or in a barber shop or something like that. So I've been trying to kind of like apply more. I've been trying to kind of sort of film sort of roots or rockabilly style videos, but in a more modern way, in a more modern style of film. And so just to kind of make it relevant, so that it's not just like a museum piece, and it's actually music that started in the 50s, but is still going and is still has something to say, or is still relevant and still interesting. And me personally, I found that, I think it's healthy to listen to as much music as you can. So I listen to all sorts of music, old music, new music. I listen to a lot of modern indie music as well. And I'll have times where I'll go off for a little while and take a break, and I'll just go and listen to some other stuff, and then I'll come back to it with a bit of a fresh mind, and then you can almost rediscover it all over again. And I've done that number of times, and sometimes it's good to do that. And I go away, have a breather, and then all of a sudden I come back round to it. And when I come back round to it, there might be a load of new bands that have suddenly appeared, and there's been some changes, and all of a sudden there's something new to go, oh, okay, and you suddenly rediscover. It's almost like hearing it for the first time. So yeah, what I do personally is try to listen to as much as possible. And that's another thing with the sessions as well, is that I am actually trying I don't want the sessions, the sort of session series that I'm doing, although it is predominantly, there is a lot of rockabilly in there. I don't want it to be just a rockabilly session series. I want it to sort of really be roots in general. So, and I want it to sort of kind of go really sort of from 30s, 40s, all the way up to 60s, 70s, even sort of hitting sort of punk and stuff like that as well. It's a little bit harder to do that with when it comes to managing the way the sessions are done with the sound and stuff like that. But I'm constantly trying to push it into different directions and just sort of cover as much as possible. And then because at the end of the day, all these genres, they're all related in some way. There's so much crossover between them, and you tend to find that although you've got different scenes and people like to stick with one, maybe they might have a particular fancy for one scene or type of music, that there's often an appreciation for other types of music that was running alongside, or before or after. So people who are watching these sessions, they might really love the rockabilly stuff, but then I'll chuck in something completely different, but they'll also like it, because it's they'll just see the connection. So
Yeah, I realize that I'm old at this point when my wife turned on like the pop thing on the XM
Top 40 or whatever.
And I was like, this is crap music. Like, this is awful. What do you think about the music today?
This is why I went off and listened to old music in the 90s, because it wasn't really doing it for me. Yeah. There, from time to time, interesting things come along. There are interesting bands, but it's hit and miss. In terms of, I suppose, mainstream pop music, it's really not interesting at all. There's very little that grabs me. If you kind of go off the beaten track a bit, there's a lot of interesting independent bands or indie bands, or however you want to sort of modern rock and roll bands, I guess. There's different things around that from time to time take my fancy, and I've got a weird. I like. I do have some interest in kind of sort of weird alternative music, like St. Vincent and anything that's kind of got like a sort of electro pop thing going on. So I've got like a total hollow other avenue that I've got a bit of a guilty pleasure for. But yeah, it's generally. I think that's another reason why there's lots of new young people all across Europe and getting into older music, whether it be rockabilly or general roots or bluegrass. I think it's because a lot of modern music doesn't deliver.
Yeah. And we're in Concord, North Carolina, which is really close to the Avid brothers' home, Mount Pleasant, North Carolina. So the Avid brothers. So
yeah. If you're ever, whenever you get back over to the States, hopefully we can connect up. I'll take you over, introduce you to some. Well, I guess you would call it roots. The original roots of bluegrass. There's kind of a revival of that here in the western part of the state. guys playing 20s and 30s music that has been lost, but that they somehow found recordings. I guess the invention of YouTube or whatever other avenues, but it's kind of interesting seeing these roots actually starting to be planted again for the new generations. Which I'm happy for, because I'm a firm believer. I think a lot of music after the 90s is crap. Now, you mentioned something. Explain to our listeners Teddy Boy, because I know what a Teddy Boy is, but explain that terminology. Because
this is a family-friendly show. Are we allowed to say that? I don't.
It's his family. I promise. Yeah. It's not the furries. I promise you.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird phenomenon. It's kind of it did start in the 50s. There was Teddy Boys in the 50s in Britain, and I think possibly in other parts of the world. I think it did spread to other parts of Europe, but probably later on, like very late 50s, early 60s, it kind of sort of like spilled over. But I think it was a particularly English thing. I think it was a thing that sort of kind of come out of England in the sort of mid 50s, and it was sort of it's kind of weird because in America in the 50s there was a lot of prosperity, and it was a time of plenty, and so there was everything just was super colourful. The clothes were amazing and really kind of garish and colourful, and you think about some of the stuff that Elvis wore in the early days. It's just like real peacock stuff,
Sure.
And you think sort of post-war it was a real time of optimism, and people just really went crazy, and all the cars looked incredible, and just it was just full of colour. But in Britain. Yeah, but in Britain it was kind of different. There was because of the war, because of the kind of post-war environment, there wasn't much money about, and there was still rationing all the way up into the 50s. So people didn't really have the same kind of amount of money over here. So people weren't able to kind of go as crazy when it came to the way they dressed and stuff. So they had to be a little bit more inventive about it. So they started hearing rock and roll coming over from America. They loved it. They thought it was amazing. And then they started trying to basically do their own version of I guess, the way that kids in America were dressing and going out wearing suits and stuff. But the way that they did it in Britain was they kind of went in a bit of a different way, and they sort of took this old, it's a kind of rebellious gesture, I suppose, but it was the kind of the invention of the teenager, and the teenager would look to their elders, and their elders from the sort of earlier part of the century, the Edwardians, would wear these kind of very nicely sort of tailored suits with velvet collars and pocket watches and all this kind of stuff. So they kind of took this image that was usually associated with like sort of high upper class working gentlemen of the early part of the century, and they basically turned it into street clothing and rock and roll music clothing, and so they, a little bit like the punks did in the 70s, sort of taking clothing and just basically turning it upside down, and so you suddenly had all these working class very poor kids and teenagers suddenly dressing up like Edwardian flamboyant gentlemen, but they were going around getting into all sorts of trouble, listening to rock and roll music, and creating this whole new movement. So that's what Teddy Boy was. It's kind of obviously look it up on Google, put in Teddy Boy, and you'll see the various different stages. And it kind of went through. It's a very weird movement, and it went through a number of different changes as it went into the sort of late 50s, early 60s. It kind of got a little bit commercialized, and it kind of got a little bit silly for a while. People started wearing all sorts of very strange variations of the Teddy Boy outfit, and it all became like more and more and more like, they would wear all these velvet on their collars, and then there'd be more velvet and more, and the colors would start getting really crazy. So originally the very early Teddy Boys would just wear mostly kind of black and sort of dark grey suits, so it was very stylish, very very kind of cool, a little bit understated. But then the later Teddy Boys started to wear more kind of vibrant colours, and it's sort of to the point where they're wearing like pinks and greens and reflescent, all sorts of crazy colours, and it kind of sort of got a little bit it kind of lost itself a little bit. It kind of sort of just became a bit silly. It became a bit silly, really. Yeah. And then obviously music moved on, and then it became about the Beatles and Beatlemania and all this kind of stuff, and Mersey Beat, and so the Teddy Boy look sort of kind of went out of fashion. Came into fashion, went out of fashion pretty quickly, but then in the 70s it came back round again, and then there was this big new Teddy Boy movement that happened in the 70s that was running alongside the punks. And weirdly, punks used to wear the Teddy Boy clothing, but they would rip it all up. So they'd wear the same stuff that the Teddy Boys would wear, but then they'd rip it all up and have like pins and whatever in it, and wear it with jeans, and and so it was kind of they sort of like sort of took the image, and then they sort of moved it onto another level, so it kind of kept on getting moved on. Sure. And then sort of in more recent times, in the last sort of 20 years, people who've been interested in the Teddy Boy movement have sort of tended to go back to the very original Teddy Boy style. So they've gone back to the very early sort of very sort of black colours and stuff like that. So it's kind of gone through a sort of a process over the decades.
You think they got that in a 3XL? Do they say, well, can I get that in a big and tall store? What a big guy.
I'm sure, well, a lot of people do get their Teddy Boy suits tailored. So it was always a thing to get it sort of just bespokely tailored. So I'm sure you could.
No, I'm sorry. I know you said that the 50s revival, the doo-wop, the rockabilly, the influences into the modern music. Just a couple examples for our listeners. I think Amy Winehouse would be a perfect example. More of a modern Lily Allen, I think, when she first came out, or Corinne Bailey, whatever her name is, I can't remember off the top of my head. But these are just a couple of influences that and even some more even modern pop stars like Meghan Trainor. The only reason I know her name is because I have a teenage girl. Had some kind of influences from that period of music. So anyway,
there you go.
Yeah, there's been some like Paloma Faith as well as an interesting one too. There's a number of really interesting artists that have come along that have certainly tapped into some of that kind of doo-wop and sort of soul, sort of stuff. And it's fantastic, some of it.
One of the things I resonated with your story is you kind of had a regular day job and then just realized like you couldn't do that anymore. So what was it like as you just kind of left that and then just pursued your dream and just kind of did your thing?
Yeah, I mean, well, it was scary because I didn't know whether it was gonna. I didn't know whether it was gonna work. So I kind of sort of did it with. I did it with sort of. I spent a long time deciding whether or not to actually do it. And then when I did, I sort of did it with this sort of caution that maybe this is not going to work and it's going to be a complete disaster, and then within 2 years or a year I'm going to be back in the office or whatever. But no, it carried on, and it's kind of carried on since. And it's been very up and down. Like when you're working for yourself and sort of doing this kind of stuff, it's not a walk in the park. You have to sort of, you really have to keep at it, and it's there's times where you're not sure whether it's sustainable and all this kind of stuff. But if you with these kind of things, and other people I know who've done something similar, pursued similar avenues, if you keep at it, eventually it takes hold, and that's kind of what's really happened over the last few years, especially. It's kind of taken hold to the point where I feel that I'm confident now that it works, and I've kind of made the right choice, But early days, it was a big risk,
Sure.
But you've got to take risks sometimes.
Yeah.
Just on your one of your videos, the Firebirds, who did a remake of their version of Sandy by Dion and the Belmonts. My daughter makes me listen to that with her every day now in the school line, and she's 5 years old. So just let her know about 1,000 of your views are probably us working the car line. So, but she's a big fan of your video. Just wanted to chat.
That's brilliant. Yeah, that's great. I mean, that just shows how the music is timeless. It's it sounds a bit cheesy, but it is a timeless music. It started in the 50s, but it resonates with people today. And it's not a thing that was just stuck in time. New people can listen to it and feel it like they're hearing it for the first time, and it's fresh and modern and relevant and speaks to them or whatever.
Yeah, and so it's good. It's good feeling music too. It's not like you want to go murder murder your mother-in-law after after listening
What
to
kind
it.
of music are you listening to?
Wow.
That was a country song, by the way.
Oh,
Yes.
gotcha. Chris, I'm hoping that there's like a 90s rap revival because I could totally get on board with that one. Like bring back some Puffy, you know.
Will Smith. is
Will
that-
Smith, yes.
Yeah, I'd actually quite like some of that. I do like a bit of that early rap, early hip hop stuff. It's quite cool.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where in the parts are these festivals that you've been going to? What parts are you think are growing faster, or maybe have a stronger movement, or kind of a bigger subgroup, whatever?
What was that? Sorry.
The places that you've been traveling, and some of these festivals and stuff. What parts of Europe, or have you seen the biggest revivals? I know you had a Japanese.
It's kind of everywhere, really. It seems to, as I said, like it kind of has these. It's a bit of a roller coaster. So, for a period of time, there'll be one particular country where it seems to be really happening. So for like a few years ago, there was like loads of stuff coming out of Sweden. Sweden seemed to be really buzzing, you know. And at the moment, there's lots of stuff coming out of Spain. Loads of record labels, loads of bands in Spain. They've got a really good sort of 60s garage movement as well. It kind of drifts about, but it's certainly the UK, France, Germany, Scandinavia, Spain, Italy. There's stuff all across there, you know. It's kind of everywhere. And yeah, over in Japan and Australia, there's quite a big. I mean, I've not been over there. I've not seen it firsthand, but I've worked with some of the bands that have come over, and you know, from all accounts, there seems to be a very healthy scene going on over there as well. Lots of festivals, and you know, its own little world that's doing its own thing, you know. And sometimes it mixes, and some people from Europe go over there and play and stuff. So it's all talking to each other, which is good.
Well, I guess tell us some things you're going to be up to. As far as we have several listeners in Europe, so in Iran too. Coincidentally, I don't know how that happened. I don't know how that happened, but
Bless the internet.
But any festivals you're going to be at here soon? When you're going to be stateside, if you come over, I mean, kind of give us some updates on what your plans are for the future.
Yeah, I'm just sort of getting into gear this year and trying to sort of plan out what it is I'm going to be doing. There's lots. I've got the session series in particular. I mean, obviously, there's other strands to the work I'm doing, whether it's music videos and documentary stuff. But the session series, it's a bit of a tongue twister. It's sort of the last 6 months. It's really kind of taken hold, and I've got lots of people that want to be involved in it. So every single day I'm talking to bands that want to be included and want to be featured. So it's kind of a case of trying to figure out schedule and working out where I'm going to be and where I'm, you know, some bands are local, some bands might just be up the road and I can go and meet them or whatever. But some bands could be on the other side of the world. So it's a case of, I've actually had a lot of bands from South America contact me. Loads of bands from Argentina and Brazil. Absolutely loads been contacting me wanting to be so that there's something happening down there. There's a big scene that seems to be happening there, and they you know, been getting loads of bands wanting to sort of saying, you know, they want to be on the session series, and it's a case of, well, okay, we need to just keep in touch and see when our paths might cross or whatever.
Sure.
So I'm in Spain in about a month's time at a little festival, filming a number of bands. Again, it's a kind of rockabilly roots thing called the Rockin' Race. And then what else I've got? I think I might be possibly going to Nashville again in May.
Nice.
So there's that, and then there's lots of different festivals all through the year, and just trying to coordinate and schedule all these different bands that some of the bands that have come to me, but also bands that I've sort of seen and think I really want to have to do a video with those guys, you know. So but the great thing is I keep discovering new bands from this as well. So because there's only so many bands you can listen to or know about, and you know, I'm always discovering new stuff, and because of the session series, people are kind of, whereas originally I was kind of going to them and sort of saying, hey, do you mind if I film you and stuff. In the last 6 months, it's kind of starting to come back the other way, and I'm getting people come to me and sort of saying, hey, is there any chance you can film us? So the great thing about that is I'm now just new, but like I'm just discovering new cool bands all the time, you know.
Nice.
And I go to someone's page and just be like, wow, how have I never heard of this band before? This is incredible. So there's loads of really interesting stuff coming along. I've all through I went crazy last year, and I just filmed as many sessions as I possibly could at a number of different festivals, and you know, sometimes it was just individual meetups, and sometimes I was at a festival and just walking around, just grabbing whoever I could. So I've got absolutely loads to go online still from last year. So before I've even started filming this year, I've already still got probably another 50, maybe something like that, that's got to go up. So it'll be a regular thing for as long as I can keep it up, really.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations. Look, I'm a small business owner. We're trying to get big in here. We're trying to get him independent pretty soon. Yeah, it's just there's nothing like it. You wake up, you hate yourself because you're your own boss, because you got to hate yourself. I mean, and then you go to work and hopefully make a few bucks or a few quid, as you guys say. I mean, it's just, but you're a lot happier. I mean, and it's pretty cool. You know, it's sitting in a square room. I guess you're not, at least. But so anyway, I want to pump out your sites real quick just before I forget. For any listeners that want to go check out some of his work and videos, you can go to Facebook. He's on Facebook at Bopflix. That's Bopflix. You can also go to Instagram and follow him. Same Bopflix, and also on the YouTubes at Bopflix. So also he has a website, Bopflix.com, I believe, right? Yep.
That's right. Yeah, it's just like a hub page, if you like. So if you go to Bopflix.com, I think that's got links to all of those other little sort of sub social media sites, you know.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed just when you were saying like all the different countries and stuff, it just popped in my head, like how music brings everybody together.
Yeah.
So for you, it's that, you know, bringing music. For us, it's just food. We love to eat.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. I like eating. I'm a fan of eating too.
Yeah. Eating's good.
I will say the other thing too is I just binge watched a crap ton of Black Mirror, and the accent's freaking me out. I'm just trying to hold it together right now.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Black Mirror, actually.
Right, it's
great
so
show.
good.
Great
so
show.
good.
Yeah, the guy that makes that, Charlie Brooker. Well, he writes it. You know, he started here in the UK as a sort of video games journalist, and he was kind of he just played a lot of video games, and he was on, I think he was presenting on a few shows in like the 90s, and then he kind of started doing these sort of satirical end of year programs where he would sort of sum up like a kind of year in review, but in a kind of very satirical, you know, black comedy kind of way. They were sort of early forms of Black Mirror, if you like. But a lot of them were sort of done like mock news, or like sort of emulating sort of news formats, but done in a kind of silly, comical way. And he would do that for different things. So he would do it for news and current affairs. And then he had another series which was all about video games, and then he had another series which was more about, I think it was just like a kind of, I think it was just like general life stuff or something. And that kept him growing, and he kind of started building up a name for himself. And then I think the big break came when he did a TV drama called Dead Set, which is a kind of it's sort of a, you know, the whole Big Brother thing, Big Brother house, you know, where they do the people go in and get voted out and all that kind of stuff. He did like a mock Big Brother season, but what happens is that while the contestants are inside the house, a big zombie apocalypse happens outside the house.
Actually, I've seen this series.
Have you really?
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I think it's like a six part series or something. Exactly. You know, it's like a really long episode of Black Mirror, basically. You know, must be about 3 hours long, broken into half an hour shows, and that was what really put him on the radar when it came to narratives. And then from then, Black Mirror started, and yeah, that's where we are today. So,
that's awesome.
And it's kind of gone from being a kind of sort of more of a British thing, really. But now he's sort of become so big. Like a lot of his stories are set in America and all over the place. So yeah, I mean, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, we're holding out for a Netflix gig too, so we'll get one day.
Yeah, maybe Chris will probably make it on Netflix before we do.
Yeah,
so.
I guarantee you that. 100%.
So my 14-year-old daughter, anytime I talk to someone from the UK, she always wants to know their opinion of Doctor Who. What do you think about Doctor Who and the new Doctor Who?
Ooh, yeah. I mean, I think that it's all to do with how you come into it, really. I think that people are nostalgic, are naturally nostalgic. So if you grew up with Doctor Who in the 50s or 60s, or I think 60s, when did it start? Late 50s, 60s maybe?
Late 50s.
Yeah, so I think, depending on when you grew up with it, you have a particular nostalgia for that time, So I started watching Doctor Who in the 80s as a kid, and then I think it ended in the 80s, maybe late 80s, early 90s, and then it was off TV for nearly 20 years. So my early memories of Doctor Who is my connections to it are the sort of the 80s Doctors, whereas like my parents, they're more favourable to the earlier Doctors, So you sort of tend to get a bit nostalgic for what you remember and what the things that scared you. So you kind of look at it and go, that's not scary anymore. But then the kids who are watching it now, they'll be terrified. So I've watched quite a few of the new series, actually. I have to say a lot of them are really good. There's certain Doctors that are better than the others. I've lost track a little bit, to be honest.
No, that's fine.
But yeah, it's good.
She was keeping me abreast of the controversy with it now having the first female Doctor. So
that's right.
Yeah, that was a big controversy.
Listen, I'm completely out when it comes to that. Doctor Who, if you say that, I try to think of American healthcare because I don't know who my doctor is right now. I'm so confused.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, it's an interesting one, but I'm sure once it's happened, it'll. Once they got into the groove of it, it'll work. But,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Chris, we appreciate you coming on the show and taking your part of your night up with us. I guess it's early morning there now. So, but we appreciate it, and we'll hopefully we'll have you back on the show sometime soon, maybe.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to. That'd be fantastic.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, well, that was a great interview. I really enjoyed that. I'm not sure about you, Biggin, but
oh yeah, definitely. Chris is fascinating.
Yeah,
it's legit.
Look, my dad. I mean, we used to drive in the car, in the old beat up car, and listen to that all the time.
Yeah.
And of course, he had the albums on the turntables too. So anyway, once again, we appreciate Chris Magee with Bopflix coming on and spending his evening with us.
Yeah. Can I just give him props? Because dude was doing this at like midnight over there. So that's like, I wouldn't get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to take a pee. So I appreciate him staying up that late.
Absolutely. So anyway, please go to our Facebook page at Southern Fried Philosophy. You can also go to our website at www.southernfriedphilosophy.com, our YouTube at SFP Radio, and Twitter and Instagram at SFP Radio.
I tell you, I'm so proud of you remembering that YouTube part.
I've been taking some ginkgo biloba for my memory.
Bless you.
So hopefully I'll remember that from now on. So.
There you go. Hey, thanks again for tuning in. You're listening to Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast. Hey, if you want to check out our stuff, go to southernfriedphilosophy.com. Also, if you want any of our hats or you want a T-shirt, give us a email at sfpradio@gmail.com, and we'll get that out to you. So thanks again for tuning in. You're listening to Southern Fried Philosophy Podcast.